All right, it's Thursday edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. You see the website below, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. Football, basketball, recruiting, you know all that stuff because I tell it to you every day. And if you're not listening, you should, because it's a place you need to be for all the latest news on Pitt sports. Football, basketball, recruiting, everything else going on. And we're in the world of Pitt sports. It's all right there at Panther-Lair.com. And of course, we have our YouTube channel here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like this video with the like button right down there. Subscribe to this video with the subscribe button right down there. And turn on your notifications so you get an alert sent to your phone every time we post new content here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Whether it's a Morning Pitt video like this one that we put out every day of the week, Monday through Friday, whether it's post-practice interviews or post-game interviews, or it's a video from spring camp, or when we go live for our live Panther-Lair show or our post-game shows. We did a live Panther-Lair show last night, 8:30. We do it every Wednesday night. And so you don't want to miss any of that stuff. So subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Turn on notifications. You'll get an alert sent to your phone whenever we do anything right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You don't want to miss it. So turn on the notifications and check it out. All right, a lot going on this week. There's been a lot going on this week. We've been recapping the offense and defense from the first half of spring camp so far. We talked about recruiting because Pitt's been getting a bunch of commitments. But there was something that happened yesterday, and you see the photos right there. It was Pro Day in the South Side. 13 Pitt players, plus one from a couple years ago, worked out for scouts from all 32 NFL teams. Even the guys who participated in the NFL Draft Combine in Indianapolis did some things yesterday. Not everything, but you see Haba Baldonado, you saw Kalijah Cansey, you saw Brandon Hill out there moving around a little bit. Excuse me. These guys still participated, and then for guys like Jared Wayne or Izzy Benacanda, who wasn't able to do much out there, or certainly Cedric Dennis, it was an opportunity to put themselves on display, show what they can jump, show what they can run, show what they can bench, show what they can do in the drills. And boy, howdy, did they impress. You've seen, I mean, by now, it's Thursday morning, whenever you're watching this video, you've seen some of the numbers that came out, and they are ridiculous. And you go back to Brandon Hill, who just popped up on the screen there, running, the fastest time for a safety at the Draft Combine. And then you come into Pro Day yesterday, and that man right there, Izzy Benacanda, he goes up the screen right as I point to him, but Izzy Benacanda puts up ridiculous numbers. A 40 time that you don't get an official time at the Pro Days. You're sort of peeking over the shoulders of NFL scouts and trying to listen in and see what the scouts have to say of what they timed a guy at. So you don't get official times during these things, but the general consensus is that he was really, really fast. Like in the 4.3 range, which, 4.4 is fast. You get sub 4.4 and you are really fast. You get in that 4.3 range or even sub 4.3, and there's even some rumors and reports that he was sub 4.3. You're talking about the fastest running back at the Combine. You're talking about one of the fastest running backs, to put up a 40 time. If you compare it, to previous years of the NFL Draft Combine. And that's ridiculous. Particularly when a guy weighs in at 217 pounds. He's not a small back, and he is moving. You add in the vertical leap, going 41 inches, which would be the best vertical leap for a running back at the Combine. And you end up with a guy who tested as well, if not better than any of the backs who went out and worked in Indianapolis. And I think Abanikanda was hurt during the Combine, so he wasn't able to participate as much out there, which is why yesterday was his big day to showcase himself. But he really did it. And, you got varying, he was a top 10 running back prospect heading into yesterday. Where he was on that scale of 1 to 10. I don't think he was in the top 5. I think I saw on Fox Sports or somewhere, around 7. That seems to be the consensus, that 7, 8, 9 range, maybe 10, based on a whole variety of factors. And I don't think anyone questioned his speed. I don't think anyone questioned his athleticism. I don't think anyone questioned Izzy Abanikanda from that standpoint. But seeing those numbers is eye-popping, and I have to think it gets some NFL teams to take a second look to say, hold on, we knew this guy was fast, but that fast? We knew he was athletic, but that athletic? Let's go back and look a little bit more at that tape and watch him break all those long runs and lead the country in rushing touchdowns and do it with a relatively low amount of carries. I mean, Izzy Abanikanda is going to the NFL with 390 career rushing attempts. Career. And I have to think that that's got to count for something. I've seen different people suggest durability concerns. He really didn't miss that much time. I mean, over the last 2 seasons, he missed 2 regular season games and sat out the bowl game. Bijan Robinson, the consensus number 1, I think is the consensus number 1 running back, the kid from Texas, over the last 2 seasons, missed 2 regular season games and sat out the bowl game. I mean, he had the same thing. Now maybe there are durability concerns about Robinson as well, but I mean, it's a running back. Running backs are going to miss time here and there. It's a physical position. I think you look at total tread on the tires, Abanikanda coming in with 390 career rushing attempts. Bijan Robinson and Zach Charbonnet and Tank Bigsby from Auburn, all 500 plus rushing attempts in college. Now, this isn't back in the day, when Dion Lewis was rushing the ball 300 times or James Conner was rushing the ball 300 times. These guys generally have lighter workloads than they used to. But if you're going to compare running back to running back, you're going to say, boy, all these guys can really make plays. I mean, one of the things that has to be working in Abanikanda's favor is sub 400 rushing attempts in college. I mean, he should have a lot of tread left on the tires. Now, Devon Achane from Texas A&M, Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama, they're both sub 400 carries as well. Gibbs has 383 career carries. Achane has 369. So it's not a complete separator. It's not like Izzy Abanikanda is coming into the NFL with the fewest carries of any of these top backs. But as as you're looking 1 through 5, 1 through 7, 1 through 10, you start finding these little things to separate these guys. And Abanikanda, with his testing numbers yesterday, the 40 and the vertical, his overall performance, what he's done on tape, and then the light tread on his tires, or the light wear, I should say, I think you've got to have him in the top 5 at this point. And you almost wonder, look, when I look at it, I mean, I sort of see, Bijan Robinson is number 1, Jahmyr Gibbs is number 2. That's my take. I'm certainly not a part of draft Twitter, and I don't pretend to play one on TV. But I sort of see those 2 guys as the top. So, I mean, you're comparing him to Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. You're comparing him to Tank Bigsby. You're comparing him to, Devon Achane from Texas A&M. And, you're trying to find where he fits in that mix of, 1, 2, 3, 4 guys after Robinson and Gibbs, to my eye. With the numbers he put up yesterday, which surpass what Charbonnet or Achane or who else? Oh, Bigsby. His numbers yesterday surpass what those guys have done. Just on a testing basis. And that's not to say that his film is obviously outstanding as well, but all these guys have great film. His numbers surpass those guys. I wonder if he impressed the scouts enough, or impressed, just one scout enough to move himself into possibly the top 3 behind Robinson and Gibbs. I think those numbers are so eye-popping. Now, he doesn't have a lot of, I think his lateral, I mean, he's like, one of these one cut and go guys who, when he gets some daylight, he can turn it into a touchdown real fast. Most of these guys kind of do that. I think, several of these guys that we're talking about in this top 10, top 7 running backs in the class, several of these guys are probably described the same way. That they have that kind of one cut and go. You give them an open lane and they take off and go for 60 yards, 70 yards, because they've got that kind of breakaway speed. Abanikanda is one of those guys, and I think he showed yesterday that he's got as much, if not more, breakaway speed than any of them. It's going to be really interesting to watch. Not on the first day of the draft. I don't think Abanikanda goes on the first round. I don't know if any of these guys go in the first round. Maybe Robinson, maybe Gibbs, maybe. But I mean, I just you follow the trends of running back being so devalued that it's really it's hard to project even just 1, let alone 2 running backs going in the first round. But once you start getting into the 2nd and 3rd rounds, I mean, I would say by the start of the 3rd round, Robinson and Gibbs will both be gone. And then it becomes a question of who goes next. Does Charbonnet go in the 3rd round? Does Bigsby go in the 3rd round? Does Achane go in the 3rd round? Does Abanikanda go in the 3rd round? or does he slide down to the 4th round? I can't imagine that he'll last past the 4th round. I can't imagine that a guy with his speed, his size, his college production, I can't imagine that he slides past the 4th round. He did not have as much receiving on tape. You know, that seems to be one of the knocks, his pass protection and his work as a receiver. I don't think he ever showed himself to be a poor receiver. You know, I don't really have many I don't have a lot of images in my mind of him dropping a lot of passes. I just don't think they threw to him very much. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he can't do it. I'm pretty sure he's talented enough to be a receiving back, out of the backfield. But even then, if that's the only knock, I feel like that's the kind of thing you can coach and develop and scheme. You know, I mean, you can, a guy like Andy Reid will find the way to throw the ball to him, and get the ball in his hands. And I don't know if the Chiefs would draft him or not, but if that's the biggest knock, I think everything else points to a guy who's 4th round at worst. But again, I'm not a member of Draft Twitter. I'm not going to sit back and pretend like I'm an NFL draft expert, because I'm not. But I know that Izzy Bandicanna can play. And he's really, really good. And he, backed it up even more with the numbers yesterday. Jared Wayne, another big winner at the pro day yesterday. 41.5-inch vertical. I think, a guy like Jared Wayne, I think he's obviously got film of being productive, particularly the last couple of games when they fed him the ball like 6,000 times to get him over 1,000 receiving yards. He's got, productivity. He's got good size. I think he needed to show explosion and speed and quickness and the ability to get separation and be a playmaker, not just, beyond what he did in college. I think he's got to show, I think he needed to show at Pro Day yesterday and on any visits that he goes with NFL teams, I think he needs to show and needed to show that he's got a lot more that he can give, that his ceiling is much higher than what it was at Pitt, because he was a very good player at Pitt. I don't know if I would say that he was a great player at Pitt. You look at his career overall, I think he was really solid. But before this past season, we talked about him as a possession receiver. That was sort of his role. He evolved into a downfield threat or a big play receiver, particularly over the last couple games of the season. But on the whole, that's kind of what he was this sort of big-bodied, strong possession receiver. And he needs to show that his ceiling is higher than that he can do more than that he can be more of an impact player. And I think, jumping 41.5 inches, that'll do. That'll show some of the explosiveness that you've got. And then a good day in the drills, I think, will help him or potentially helped him a lot as well. And then Cedric Dennis put up some impressive numbers. I think, was he in the 4.6 range or maybe sub 4.6 on the 40? Another huge vertical leap, 41 inches. I don't think, I saw someone say, maybe it was an interview with Cervasier himself, said people were questioning his athleticism. I don't think anybody should have been questioning his athleticism or his speed, quite frankly. I think you knew those things were there just from watching him play. I don't think there should be any question about that. I think the question with Cedric Dennis, quite frankly, is he big enough? And kind of like 1B, if that's 1A, 1B, can he stay big enough? He measured in yesterday at 6 foot, 227 pounds. That doesn't feel super heavy for a linebacker. It feels a little bit light for an NFL linebacker. Now, there are different linebacker roles and some where you could play a little bit lighter. But can he maintain that weight? Can he stay 225, 230? He's not a big guy. He doesn't have a big frame. He's got great athleticism. He moves really well with his size and all that stuff. He's a really, really good player. But I think there's always going to be a question of whether he can get big enough and maintain that size when he gets to the NFL. And so, 227 yesterday, he needs to, hopefully he ate a big meal before he stepped on the scale to try and get the weight there. That's probably going to be the thing with him. Now, he could be a guy who catches on either as a late draft pick or or an undrafted free agent, wherever he ends up, and makes some money playing special teams. You know what I mean? Makes a team play as a special teams player, somebody who can really make an impact there and prove his worth and value there, and maybe then eventually slide into a defensive role. I think that could be good for him, but he's just got to stay. He's got to keep some of that weight. He's got the athleticism, he's got the speed and all those things. He's definitely got the smarts. He knows how to play football. He's a smart player. He's just got to bulk up and stay bulked up. Obviously, Kalijah Cansey, he pops up on the screen there. I don't think he did anything yesterday to hurt the massive impression he made at the combine. I don't see that falling off at all. I mean, there's still a lot of talk about him being a first-round draft pick, which I always wondered if that was a possibility or not. You talk about size with Cedric Dennis. I wondered if he was too small. Because Kalijah Cansey is smaller than Aaron Donald. We talk about Aaron Donald being an undersized defensive tackle. Cansey's smaller than him. But if he keeps running and jumping and working out the way he has, yeah, I mean, he could be a first-round draft pick. And I think teams there's probably at least a little bit of a thought of, well, we don't want to miss out on the next undersized D tackle from Pitt. He's not going to get drafted in the first round because of that. I think he's going to get drafted in the first round because of his production and his measurables and how fast he is and how quick he is as a 280-pound defensive tackle. If he ended up with the Steelers, it'd be really interesting because their defensive linemen aren't built like he is. Their defensive linemen in that 3-4 system are not built the way Kalijah Cansey's built. They're bigger. If you put Cam Hayward next to Kalijah Cansey, there's a difference there. And maybe he wouldn't be playing the exact same position, but to hear Pat Narduzzi say it on Tuesday, Cansey could play any of those spots. He could play, one technique, three technique, 4-eye, as Narduzzi called it in the 3-4 defense. I mean, he could do a lot of things. And that kind of quickness and speed and strength at that size, I mean, you can make an impact at the next level. And I think that's what Cansey's going to be looking to do as a first-round draft pick. I still think Brandon Hill might end up being a real surprise here. I think Eric Hallett and Brandon Hill both can play in the NFL. Hallett measured in a little bit small yesterday, 5'9", 195. Hill was 5'10", 194. It's not that big of a difference. 5'9", when you read it on paper, just looks really small, even though it's only an inch shorter than 5'10". But I think both guys, with their speed, their athleticism, their knowledge, playing in this defense, I think helps. I think for some positions in particular, playing in Pat Narduzzi's defense is viewed as a bonus by NFL coaches and NFL scouts, where they say, oh, okay, if you could play that position in that defensive scheme, yeah, we're pretty sure you can play, in the NFL and read offenses and make adjustments and make calls and checks and all those kinds of things. We're pretty sure you can hang at this level. And I think Brandon Hill and Eric Hallett are both going to prove it. I mean, they've got lots of time on the field in this defensive scheme. They're very productive in this defensive scheme. And now at the combine for Hill and then pro day yesterday with both of these guys, they've tested really well as well. And I think they've impressed with their speed and their athleticism to go along with what they've shown on tape and what they're going to be able to do in interviews. Pat Narduzzi talked about this on Tuesday that scouts have told him how smart his players seem to be in terms of knowing the game of football. And I think guys like Eric Hallett and Brandon Hill are going to sit down in an interview with an NFL scout or an NFL coach, and they're going to impress because they know the game. They know how to talk about the game, and they understand the game because so much is put on the safeties in this defensive scheme. And so I think that's going to be a big bonus for Hallett and Hill. And I think those guys are going to show up in the NFL. I think they're both going to have long careers. And Brandon Hill, I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Hill sneaks his way into like the top, 4 rounds minimum, if not the top 3. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I think he can definitely play in this league, in the NFL, I should say, and play really well and have a long, successful career. And then we're watching guys like Haba Baldonado, who sure is built like an NFL defensive end. His testing numbers, I didn't look over those numbers quite as close, but I mean, I think he's a guy where, you see it on film, and Pat Narduzzi said it during the season last year that NFL scouts would come through and they would watch the film and they'd say, geez, this guy is like in position to make all these plays. He's not quite finishing them, but he's putting himself in position to make all these plays, and that impresses us enough. And I think that's going to be Baldonado's film is limited because he's been hurt at times over the last couple of years. But when he's been out there and when he's been healthy, he's played at a really, really high level. And so, total draft picks, I think Cansey, Abanikanda, Hill, Baldonado, that's 4. I would imagine Hallett gets drafted, that's 5. And then you start looking at Jared Wayne. You start looking at Cervasier Dennis. You start kind of. Let me just look through the list here. Oh, Carter Warren. I didn't even talk about him. He's the guy who seems to have climbed the draft boards. So he's one who's going to get drafted. You're looking at at least 6 guys, I think, that are almost sure things to be drafted. And then you start looking to see if a Marcus Minor can climb into the end of the draft. Cervasier Dennis, a Desmond Alexander, or somebody like that. I mean, good athletes with good size, with good production in college. Guys who look like they can play. Guys who look like they can be contributors at the next level. This should be a pretty good draft class for Pitt, and a pretty fun draft to watch if you're a Pitt fan. So congratulations to those guys. Great job yesterday. It was fun to see them have the success. It's always fun when you're in a position like mine where you've been talking to these guys for 6 years, 7 years. You've known them since high school, and to see them come all this way to now be playing themselves into NFL draft picks, it's pretty entertaining to see. It's fun to watch that journey, and that's what you get to follow when you keep up with Rivals.com. You keep up with Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. So make sure you go over there and check it out to get the latest on everything football, basketball, and recruiting. While you're here, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We appreciate it. And we are almost to the end of the week, folks. We made it. Today's Thursday. Hope you've had a great week so far. Enjoy your day today. Tomorrow is Friday, and we will talk to you. Get your day started with the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.